What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Transfer Watch video on Fantasy Football Scout. So we're going to talk about FPL players, two of the most transferred in, two of the most transferred out, whether or not they're people are making a mistake. They should be bringing them in, they should be avoiding, keeping for now, that kind of thing. And we're just going to jump straight into it with James Ward-Prowse, £6 million, 81,500 transfers in already. And it's probably not surprising, right? Over the last 5 game weeks, he's had 3 double-digit hauls. So an 11-pointer yesterday, another 11-pointer, and 17 points as well so far. So he's doing pretty decent in recent times. And you could argue that at £6 million, there's not too many other better options, right? So you can go up to Diogo Jota, you can go up to Jack Grealish, but they're all more expensive. And then if you go down a bit, you've got Rafinha at Leeds, who's starting to look pretty good, and Neto and Podence at Wolves, but their fixtures are pretty awful coming up. So I don't think anyone wants to jump on them. So £6 million for Ward-Prowse right now looks pretty good, and the fixtures are decent. So Brighton away, Sheffield United at home to come up next. Can see both of them conceded. It gets a little bit trickier then. Arsenal away and Man City at home, followed by Fulham. So 3 of the next 5 are pretty decent. And the way, teams like Arsenal are playing, I'm sure Southampton could get a goal there. They got 2 against Man United. Maybe they get something against City, and Ward-Prowse might be involved. My one concern is, and what I'd be wary about, is where his goals are coming from. So he has scored 9 direct free kicks in total now, and I believe only David Beckham has scored more than that in the Premier League. So there's no doubt that he is a very, very good direct free kick taker. But when you think for how many seasons he's played, and he's only got 9, I say only, right, it's obviously good, but only 9 of his goals have come from direct free kicks. What that tells me is they're not scored very often, right? 3 of his 4 goals so far have come from direct free kicks this season. There's only been 6 in the whole league, right? So 3 other players have scored 1. He scored 3, and that's it. That makes up all the direct free kicks scored for this season so far in 10 game weeks. So it's not something that I think is sustainable, which is what would put me off him. The other issue is, and sometimes you get this in FPL, it's not necessarily that he is a bad option, it's that there's so many other good options, right? So if I think right now about who people are trying to fit in their teams, right? Bruno Fernandes is doing so well. People really want him. There's still people with Kane and Son. There's Kevin De Bruyne, who's just hit a 10-pointer with Fulham up next. You've got Salah with Fulham in game week 12. Diogo Jota, who I already mentioned. Maybe Mane, Sterling, Mahrez just scored a hat-trick. There's lots and lots of players that people are trying to bring in to pack into that midfield. And it feels like the same every year. It gets to the point where even 5 midfielders doesn't feel like enough. And I just don't see where James Ward-Prowse fits in, which is where my kind of issue lies with him. So he's been brought in with 81,000 people already. I'm not saying they've made a mistake, but for me, I would avoid him, I think. I just don't think those returns are sustainable. I think 3 double-digit hauls in 5 is brilliant. If you had him, fair enough. The one plus I would say is he probably has penalties. We don't know for sure, but he probably has penalties while Danny Ings is out because he was the penalty taker before. Che Adams maybe want a say in that, but it seems unlikely he would get them when James Ward-Prowse was so good at them before. So until Danny Ings is back, that could be a plus for him. But outside of that, I'm not convinced the returns keep coming. It's great having set-piece players in your team, but for me, where that comes in is you want a player that's good and they have free kicks or they have corners. And obviously, Ward-Prowse is a good player, but we're talking good from an FPL point of view. And I think most of his points are going to come from those set pieces. I don't think it's necessarily sustainable. Certainly not 3 double-digit hauls in 5 sustainable. So he is a brilliant free kick taker. It was a brilliant free kick against Man United. Really left David De Gea with very little chance of saving it. But 3 in total so far this season, and only 6 in the whole league, shows you how difficult they really are to score, even when you're as good as Ward-Prowse. And for me, just doesn't have enough open goal threat. And for the price, he's okay, but there's way too many other players that people are trying to fit in right now, where James Ward-Prowse is a transfer that really needs to be made for me. So Cavani up next, 45,000 transfers in already for him. And I think Man United fans have been waiting for Cavani to get a start in the league. It still hasn't actually happened. He came on for the final 45 minutes. He was subbed on at half-time. It was quite a positive change from Solskjaer. 2 goals, 1 assist later, 15 FPL points. And it's looking pretty decent for him and for anyone that jumped on early. I'm not sure he would have had many owners before this week, but if you did, fair play. The thing, it's obviously going to be difficult now for Solskjaer to drop him. And even if Martial does come back in, because obviously he missed the game, wasn't in the squad, even if he does come back in, we could see him play wide. We saw that in the Champions League, that Martial and Rashford played wide. And if we're going to continue with that kind of formation and not play the split striker formation that we saw against Southampton at times, then I feel like Cavani could be a shot. My only issue is, I think it's not my issue with him, it's just his issue is fitness, right? I don't think part of the reason he's not played so many minutes is because Solskjaer doesn't trust him. I think it's just him trying to have to build up his fitness. Now, whether or not he's now fully fit and he's going to be able to play kind of 2-3 games in the space of like 7, 8, 9 days or whatever it might be over Christmas, that's my main worry, right? That's probably why he's not been in the team. And if he goes now and plays in the Champions League, starts, plays 70, 80, 90 minutes, is he going to start in the Premier League again? We're going to have to wait and see what Solskjaer says. The problem is Solskjaer doesn't necessarily give us the greatest info every single week. Like Rashford again was a doubt. He starts again for the second week in a row. The one thing I do like about Man United right now is that they've started playing Van der Beek as well, which is allowing Fernandes to go, not necessarily go forward because he was always going forward anyway, but to not have to do so much work deep, which is allowing him to get closer to whoever plays number 9. I think that's good for obviously him, but it's also good for the striker as well. And we saw that, look, the assist for Fernandes was a shot that didn't pay off, but Cavani was in the right place, right time. Fernandes is in the box for the goal that he got. Cavani setting it up, so it's a good chemistry. They look like they're potentially building. It's still very, very early days, but we know Cavani is a great striker. We've seen that plenty of times in the past. I think fixtures-wise, is West Ham away, it's just okay. It's probably going to be more difficult than Southampton just because of the way they defend. They defend very deep with a back 5, so that's a little bit of a worry. And then it's Man City. So I'm not sure there's a rush to get Cavani in, but at 8 million at a time where maybe after this week, people are going to start looking at Dominic Calvert-Lewin's fixtures and saying, could I move him on for a little bit? A bit like Kane, a bit like Son has been happening over the last couple of weeks. Could I move him on? And let's say you got him at 7 million. I think he's gone up to 7.8 now. So you've got 7.4 to spend. You've only got to find 0.6 million to buy Cavani. And for people that got on Calvert-Lewin late, it's even less to get up there. So it's definitely a tempter. For me, I still think it's a wait and see. I think at least wait until the Champions League has happened this week and see how many minutes he plays. But if he doesn't play the whole game, or if he does and Solskjaer says he's fit to continue doing that, he could be a really good option going forward. There's not too many players around that price mark in the forward line that are worth looking at. So if you've got something of a slot like that, it could be an option, but I do think it's probably worth giving it a few more weeks, maybe wait until after Man City and then reassess him. So James Rodriguez up next, transferred out by over 108,000 managers already. And to be fair, he hasn't got a return above 4 points since game week 4, and he's only missed one game in that time as well. So it's not looking good for him right now. And I do think Luca Dean missing out is quite a big issue because a lot of the times when they were playing 4 at the back and Rodriguez was kind of in form at the start of the season, his outball from that right to kind of create space for Everton was to pass it over on the left-hand side. Now, sometimes that was to Richarlison, but quite often it was actually to Luca Dean. That then lets the ball switch over there. He can then start moving towards the box a little bit more. And that's not really happened, especially with 5 at the back. And to be fair, he was maybe slightly unfortunate not to get more points against Leeds. The offside goal, obviously it was offside, but it was fairly close. Another day, maybe Everton score a different way, and then who knows, right? He's obviously always taking set pieces, or a lot of the set pieces for sure. And he has got a little bit of goal threat too. The issue comes, I guess, with the fixtures now. So it's Burnley away, and that's a fixture I think you can keep him for. You don't have to rush to get rid of him, although I did say the same last week when people asked me about him, and then look what happened there. But Burnley away is an okay match. I don't really see it being high scoring, but he could be in the points. It's probably a match for a player like him. You can probably get further forward if Burnley aren't offering enough in attack. After that, though, it gets really difficult. Chelsea at home, Leicester away, Arsenal at home, Sheffield United away, and Man City at home. And I don't necessarily think that lots of those teams will keep clean sheets in the game, but I definitely think the volume of goals that Everton score will be a lot less than they have been scoring. So it's really not a good fixture run. Chelsea defence is decent. Leicester is on its day as well, especially if they get some players back from injury. Man City defence really good. Sheffield United don't tend to concede too many, although they don't keep many clean sheets either. And Arsenal, well, it's a little bit hit and miss, but they have been defending okay. But I guess the more and more they're not attacking, it's going to leave bigger pressure on their defence as well. So for me, I think, again, it's a little bit like James Ward-Prowse. I don't think he's necessarily a bad option for Game Week 11 because he's playing Burnley, like I mentioned. But there are a lot of other good players right now, and I don't think many people are going to be moving to Ziyech anymore. But there is like 7.9 million for Rodriguez. You can get Jota for less money, who's got Wolves then Fulham. So a lot of people will be looking at that. And generally looking at ways to upgrade their midfielders to the likes of Fernandes, etc. So I can see why people are doing this. I don't think it's a mistake to be doing it this week. I do think there's a case to be made to keep him. And obviously, it's difficult to give blanket advice because everybody's team is different, and maybe you've got bigger, important fires to put out. But I do think he's probably a good sell at this point. Burnley, where I don't see a huge amount of points, and the fixtures after, I definitely do. I just think there's more consistent and better options right now. But for his price, if you don't want to go to Jota, you already got him, or you don't want to go to Grealish, or you've already got him as well. Again, maybe there's not too many better options around that price. So you could go to Ziyech, but he's not exactly been doing great over the last 3 games, and people are suddenly getting cold feet on him as well. So not a must sell, but I also think it is probably fine to sell at this point as well. So not starting in Game Week 10 really hasn't helped Mane, and obviously he did score, but that was chalked off for offside, rightly so, but still very frustrating for owners to then come off the bench, nearly get a goal, and end up ultimately with nothing. 60,000 transfers out already. And the other issue, of course, is that Jota continues to perform. He's on a bit of a hot streak right now. How long that will continue, who knows? But for a lot less money, bearing in mind Mane doesn't have penalties either, for a lot less money you can get Jota and maybe upgrade somewhere else. So I can see why people are getting rid of him, but I do think it's the wrong time. They're about to play a Wolves side who have switched to a back 4. And they haven't done too badly. They only conceded 1 to Arsenal, but then again, Arsenal's attack hasn't been fantastic recently. So it might not be the worst time to play a Wolves side that are transitioning to a new system that maybe they're not quite used to. I'm sure they're going through it over and over and over again, and it's being drilled into them in training, but that's not quite the same as playing a match. And obviously playing Liverpool is also not quite the same as playing any other team as well. So I don't think it's a bad fixture for Liverpool right now. And then after that, it's Fulham. So again, this all depends on your team. To give blanket advice to say do or do not sell is impossible. Like maybe if you're going for Fernandes, you think he's must have. You want to go for De Bruyne or Sterling for captaincy against Fulham, fair enough. But ultimately, I think we're about, maybe not this week, but in Game Week 12, we're going to get into a period where people are looking about how to bring in Salah, how to bring in Jota, basically how to get Liverpool players. And Mane on his day is just as good as any of the others. So for me, it's probably the wrong time to be looking to get rid of him unless it's a must-have player that you don't already own, or at least that you think is must-have. I just think Wolves at home, Fulham away is probably a decent hold, especially when the Champions League fixtures to go. And he's had his rest now, so I would be looking at it as, yes, it's frustrating, but I can't, even if he plays in the Champions League, I can't imagine that he doesn't start the next league game as well. So for me, I would probably hold him, although it's very easy to say that when I already own Salah. Like if you're moving to Salah, fair enough, because I think he is the better option long term, and I think a lot of people did that last week anyway. But yeah, I think given the fixtures, given the fact that he's had his rest now, and they're playing Wolves and Fulham away, I think you can hold him. I don't think it's necessarily a mistake to sell him, but I think people might regret it next week, especially for Fulham. That is it for this one. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about the players I've discussed. Are they holds? Are they avoids? Should we be buying? Should we be selling? James Ward-Prowse, Mane, what do you think? Does your opinion differ to mine? Let me know in the comments below. Also, hit that like button if you haven't already. Really helps out the channel, and that subscribe button as well if you haven't already. You're watching the content anyway, you might as well consider subscribing. And lastly, if you want to sign up to be a Fantasy Football Scout member, get all your stats, extra articles, loads of tools such as comparison tools. You can build your own stats table. There's Rate My Team and all that kind of thing as well. There's a link to that in the description below as well. Otherwise, I'll leave the video there. We've got more content coming tomorrow and throughout the week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well, and I'll catch you again soon.